Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
So you handed us this fascinating stack of sources. We've got articles, theological essays, some behavioral studies, and they all seem to circle one thing, a force that's, it's almost universally acknowledged in professional life,
Yeah.
but it's very, very rarely scrutinized, and that's ambition.
Exactly.
It's the engine, right? It's what we praise on a resume. It's what we look for in leadership. We try to manage it, maybe redirect it when it feels a little too consuming, but we almost never question it at its root.
Yeah.
We like it. It gets results, growth, influence, visibility.
And that's a blind spot. That's exactly where the source material really focuses its critique. We make this assumption that if an ambition is productive, well, then it must be healthy.
Sure.
But the uncomfortable truth is that ambition can look incredibly disciplined. It can look faithful, even sacrificial, and still be, at its core, fundamentally disordered.
Disordered. How can something be disordered if it's working, if it's getting results?
Well, it's disordered because the most dangerous kinds of ambition, they aren't the ones that are overtly selfish. It's the ones that that co-opt spiritual or noble language. They look like service.
Okay.
But they operate on this assumption that effectiveness, the metrics, the stuff the world can see, is the same thing as faithfulness, as inner alignment. It's about seeking a kingdom, but a kingdom through the self, not one that's beyond the self.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really dig into that tension, the tension between that kind of unchecked worldly ambition and the quiet, often agonizing process of spiritual formation. We're going to use this really radical question that Jesus asks in the Gospels to cut through all that noise.
Can you drink the cup I am going to drink?
Exactly.
And that's such an essential invitation for you, the listener, because it forces you to look right underneath the surface of your own drive, to ask what kind of glory am I actually seeking, and what cost am I really prepared to pay? Not just in money, but, relationally, ethically, spiritually.
That is the core problem. Sources just keep coming back to it. Our current environment, it overwhelmingly rewards ambition externally. You get the title, you get the platform, the metrics go up. But because that desire is so rarely examined on the inside, it just creates this widening chasm. You see people advancing outwardly, hitting all the goals society applauds, while at the very same time they're becoming spiritually fragmented on the inside. The problem isn't wanting too much. It's wanting without discernment.
And to really diagnose this, we have to define ambition accurately first. The sources are clear on this. It's not fundamentally a moral category. It's a form of desire. It's a directional longing, a pull toward meaning and fruitfulness and impact.
So the desire itself isn't bad, just because it exists.
Not at all. That impulse, that drive to cultivate and to steward, that actually reflects the Imago Dei. It's this God-given impulse to create and to care. And the material really emphasizes that Jesus never, ever shames desire. He doesn't want to extinguish ambition. He wants to redefine it, to redirect it. The problem comes when that desire is left, unexamined. Unexamined ambition. It seeks affirmation, but without the formation. It craves impact, but without the surrender.
It wants the resurrection without the crucifixion.
Exactly. It operates under this really flawed assumption that our calling is only proven by how visible it is, that our obedience should automatically speed up the results, and that suffering is just this burdensome interruption to our purpose, not part of it.
I think everyone listening has probably felt that pressure, this belief that if you just work harder, God will reward you with a bigger platform, as if, visibility is some kind of sign of divine favor. But how do the sources explain the root of that? Why do we bend that way?
That's where we have to go to the theological roots. The sources bring up Augustine's concept of the human heart as incurvatus in se. It's a beautiful but also kind of a tragic phrase.
Curved inward on itself.
Yeah.
That explains so much.
It really does.
Yeah.
Because even when our aspirations start out noble, we genuinely want to lead well, to serve others, to build something that lasts, that inward curve subtly bends them. The focus shifts, often so subtly you don't even notice, from true service to, self-exaltation. Your achievement gets tethered to your identity, to your worth.
And the cost of that inward bending just accumulates, right? Especially in our world, which rewards speed and scale and visibility above almost anything else. We see it playing out. This doesn't just exhaust individuals. It actually reshapes entire cultures inside organizations.
Oh, it absolutely does. When you see leaders who are succeeding publicly while they're just collapsing privately, or ministries that fracture because the real motive underneath was always competitive or transactional, That's the consequence. Calling becomes something you have to earn or leverage or defend instead of something that's just entrusted to you, something to be held lightly.
Okay, let's shift our focus to the main text for this, which is this incredible moment of narrative tension in Mark's gospel, the story of James and John. And we have to set the scene because the timing of it is, well, it's everything.
The context is absolutely crucial. So Jesus is walking ahead of his disciples. He's on the road to Jerusalem, and he has this resolute clarity about him. And he has just for the third time predicted his own suffering, his betrayal, his death, and his resurrection. The message could not be clearer. The road ahead involves immense cost.
And right after this devastating, totally unambiguous prediction of the cross, James and John, two of his inner circle, they walk up to him. And they ask. What do they ask? They say, "Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask. Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory."
It is just an astounding moment. I mean, you can feel the obliviousness.
Yeah.
But their ambition was sincere. They really believed Jesus was the Messiah, and they wanted to be part of his reign. They didn't want power apart from him. They wanted the best seats with him.
So they weren't bad guys. They were just completely missing the point.
Exactly. Their theology wasn't totally wrong, but their imagination was just profoundly flawed. They were picturing crowns, but without any scars. Exaltation, but without the descent. You know, their ambition was tethered to Jesus, but it wasn't yet shaped by the brutal reality of his path. They wanted the benefits of discipleship, the position, without understanding how that authority would actually be established. And that's when Jesus asks his famous question, the diagnostic question that just cuts to the root of it all. He says, "You do not know what you are asking. Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I am baptized with?"
And with that one question, he shifts the entire conversation. He moves it away from a negotiation about position, about where they'll sit, to an examination of participation, what they'll have to endure.
We really need to slow down here and define that cup. Because in the Old Testament, the cup is this really rich, really sobering symbol. It represents the portion that God allots to someone. And often that means judgment or wrath or just intense suffering. You see it in places like Psalm 75, Isaiah 51.
It's the full measure of what's given to you.
Yes. For Jesus, this cup signifies total painful obedience, all the way to suffering. It's the ultimate submission we see him wrestling with later in Gethsemane. So he's asking them, are you prepared not just to reign with me later, but to suffer with me, to surrender with me, to sacrifice with me? Now, he's redefining ambition away from status and towards surrender.
And here's the devastating irony that the sources really stress. They ask for the spots of honor at his right and left in his glory. But when Jesus actually enters his glory, the hour of his crucifixion, the only figures in those two coveted positions are two criminals, crucified right beside him.
That is the radical reversal. Glory in the economy of Jesus' kingdom isn't revealed on thrones, it's revealed on crosses. It just completely overturns every human competitive definition of success we have. The very positions they were craving were places of utter shame, agony, and death. And this brings us right to the core principle of kingdom order that the material highlights over and over again. Formation has to precede elevation. The cup always comes before the crown.
Why is that order so critical, though? I mean, why not just give them the authority?
Because advancement in God's economy, it doesn't start with a platform or with recognition. It starts with surrender. It starts with a tested character. God refuses to grant authority, to grant power to people who would ultimately be destroyed by it.
Or who would use it to destroy others.
Exactly. Power without character is a disaster.
And you can see that fear, right? When the other 10 disciples hear what James and John asked, they become indignant, which tells you they have the exact same competitive ambition. They were just mad that James and John got there first.
It's the perfect setup. It allows Jesus to deliver this radical redefinition of greatness. This is in Mark 10, he says, "Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all."
Does not sound like a motivational poster. That sounds exhausting.
It's exhausting to the ego, absolutely, but it's liberating for the soul. Greatness is measured by service, not by status. It's measured by how much you resemble Christ's own humility and self-giving. The scandal of it is that redeemed ambition always moves downward first, into the unseen, essential acts of service, before it can ever move outward toward influence.
I really appreciate how the sources talk about suffering in this context. They call it a safe-making tool, which suggests it's not punitive, it's preparatory.
It's profoundly formative. Suffering, it exposes our hidden motives, it dismantles our illusion of self-sufficiency, it strips away our sense of control, which is the very thing that unexamined ambition fights so hard to maintain.
And if you look at the examples in the sources, God always seems to restrain ambition until character can actually bear its weight.
Yeah.
You mentioned Moses, 40 years in obscurity before he ever led anyone. Or David, anointed king as a teenager, but he spends years on the run being persecuted before he ever sits on the throne.
And those delays, those seasons of obscurity, they weren't interruptions to the plan. They were the curriculum. Ambition that's truly redeemed, it stops striving for prominence and it starts consenting to formation. The whole question shifts from how far can I go to how faithfully can I follow right here, today. So ultimately, ambition acts as a kind of theological signal. It points directly to what we value, to what we fundamentally trust to define us. And if you let Jesus' question, can you drink the cup? If you let that cut through your resume and your reputation, it invites a much deeper audit. It invites the question, what is the desire beneath my desire?
I think everyone has felt that moment where your desire to serve feels, I don't know, subtly corrupted by this hunger to be seen doing it.
That is the key conflict. On the surface, our ambition presents itself as this noble longing to make a difference. But the material forces you to look underneath that, to uncover those less examined motivations, the desperate hunger to be seen, the paralyzing fear of insignificance, or this deep need to justify your own existence through achievement. Until those are brought into the light, the ambition is going to stay disordered.
So let's talk about that deeper audit. The sources give some really specific diagnostic questions for you, the listener, to use. They're designed to surface where your true loyalties are. I'll throw one out. Maybe you can elaborate on why it's so important.
Let's do it.
Okay, first question in this ambition audit is, what kind of glory am I actually pursuing?
That's diagnostic because it reveals your ultimate loyalty. Are you chasing the temporary glory of human achievement, applause, status, metrics, or the kind of glory that, as we saw with Jesus, is revealed in sacrifice and humility? If your sense of glory fades the second no one is watching, well, you have your answer.
Okay, next one. Whose approval silently governs my decisions?
That one targets the tyranny of comparison. We often think we're serving some divine calling, but if our daily decisions, what we say yes to, what we say no to, if they're really being dictated by a fear of what people think or the need to impress our peers, then our ambition has been outsourced. That pursuit of approval is a powerful engine, but it's a deeply fragile one.
And the really practical one. What cup is being offered to me today, not to reduce me, but to reshape me?
That's the hardest one, because the cup often looks like things we actively try to avoid. It can look like obscurity, a frustrating delay on a project you care about, taking on a difficult or uncredited role, or just choosing to be faithful in a season where you feel like you're being pruned back. When redeemed ambition faces that cup, it doesn't fight the circumstances. It consents to the formation that those circumstances are offering.
So when ambition is willing to honestly engage with those questions, it demands a total practical shift, a shift toward what the material calls redeemed ambition, an approach that's rooted in, well, costly obedience.
And that kind of costly obedience, it just flies in the face of all conventional success advice. It means holding your aspirations loosely, submitting your plans without demanding a certain outcome. It means choosing faithfulness in the small, unseen acts of service, the tasks nobody claps for, the roles that don't get you credit.
And it also means embracing those seasons of preparation, right?
Yeah.
The pruning, the delay, the loss, seeing them not as frustrating roadblocks, but as refinement.
Exactly. Redeemed ambition is learning the clear, practical difference between ambition that truly serves God's purposes and ambition that, in its subtle inward curve, actually just serves the self. It transforms the question from how can I achieve more to how can I submit more?
Right.
So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, the ambitious, driven listener? We keep coming back to this central paradox in the sources, the path of the cup before the crown. It's the only way to leadership, to influence, to glory that actually honors God and safeguards your own soul. Redeemed ambition isn't passive. It's not weak. It's intense, it's faithful, and it's life-giving. It takes that restless human desire to matter and it transforms it into a focused, disciplined passion to serve. A service that's defined by the master, not by the metrics.
And this path, it offers a profound promise of freedom. Freedom from the striving that always feels empty in the end. And freedom from the kind of success that extracts more from you than it ever gives back. It allows your energy, your vision, your leadership to stay aligned with Christ instead of being dependent on the very volatile, very fragile currency of human applause. So we'll leave you with the unavoidable question that cuts through every resume, every reputation, built right on the wisdom in these sources. If the crown, true influence, true greatness is ultimately given by God, not taken by force or by strategy, how would that reality reshape your daily priorities, your approach to risk, and your long-term definition of success?